of that book will be about and why the world needs it now, please.
The book that I'm in the process of writing is going to be called The Gold Standard of Saint Germain, and it's intended to convey the gold standard of understanding that is possible to achieve with respect to the teachings of the Masters. And I'm in conversation right now with the publishers at Summit Lighthouse who have expressed an interest to have a look at this and make it available. And this is not for the general public, it's for Keepers of the Flame, it's for students of the Masters, and it's an understanding that, as I was just expressing to Laura here a few minutes ago, in the consciousness of the students, I believe it has the ability to increase what they receive from the teachings tenfold by their application of this understanding. And so it's based on three concepts, and I describe these as the four pillars, the Fohatic Keys, and the protocol. The four pillars, as described by the Masters, are four books: Studies of the Aura by Kuthumi, Studies in Alchemy by Saint Germain, Intermediate Studies in Alchemy by Saint Germain, and Intermediate Studies of the Aura by Dwal Kul. And they represent the four pillars that are the foundation of the path of the Rose Cross, as described by Sanat Kumara in Volume 29, Pearls of Wisdom. And so all of us walking the path of attention are going to walk that path of the Rose Cross. And so we need to have the foundation before we embark on the journey. If you're going to build the pyramid of life on a wobbly foundation, you're not going to complete the project. And so the four pillars that the foundation sits on need to be in place. And so the students are encouraged to read these four books at the beginning of the journey, and many of the students have not done so. I've read Study of the Aura probably 20 times. I've read Studies in Alchemy probably 30 or 40 times. And I've come to really understand so much more about the material. It's not just the words on the printed page. Back in 1958, El Morya explained to us that when we are reading these words, which are really the transcribed dictations that were spoken by the Masters, here you have the eternal Logos, the Word, the living Word, being expressed now on a printed page instead of verbally. Still, it's alive. It's still luminous, intelligent substance. And it does emanate from the page into the consciousness of the reader. And even the most dense consciousness does receive that light of the Master when exposed to this material. Many of the students, especially in the early stages, don't really have that understanding. And so when we look at the picture, of Saint Germain, I don't know if we can see that. In the background, there's these symbols. They look like hieroglyphs. And they're written in Atlantean script. And Saint Germain has said that those are Fohatic Keys. And when you get to studying Saint Germain's retreat, which is the Cave of Symbols in Wyoming, where he has the atomic accelerator chair.
The what?
The atomic accelerator chair.
Okay.
That's another video we'll do.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's a chair I sat in and had my chakras accelerated, and it was like fireworks. It was amazing. Saint Germain, from that retreat, sends Fohatic Keys out into the atmosphere specifically for the purpose of breaking up the patterns, the toxic patterns that are produced by rock music. And if you begin to study the dictations of the Masters and do a search in the Pearls of Wisdom, which I've done, I've searched all the Pearls of Wisdom every time the word Fohatic or Fohatic key or Fohat was used, I copied the paragraphs out. So I've got hundreds of paragraphs. And then I also went into Agni Yoga. I have all the volumes of that library in digital format. So I did a word search for Fohat, and I discovered that Almoria talked about Fohat a lot in some of that material. And I gleaned from that an understanding, a little piece of an understanding about Fohatic science and what the Fohatic keys are able to contain. So Saint Germain would use the phrase, they are cups of light. Each Fohatic key is a cup of light. But when you ask yourself, what is in that cup of light? And relate that to the concept of bija mantras. And bija mantras are seed syllables. And the idea of a seed, what is in the seed? The seed contains everything required to produce what that seed exists for. We're even told that the seed of our ascension is within our heart. The potential for us to become an ascended master. Everything we learn in alchemy is produced from seed. Everything that exists is produced from seed. So in the bija mantras, we come to understand that the seed syllables are the seeds of virtue. And by giving the mantras, we are planting seeds of virtue in our consciousness so that virtue grows and blooms in our consciousness. So cups of light, Fohatic keys, containing seeds of light, I present the following idea to you. Imagine you're an ascended master, or a group of ascended masters working in your ascended master laboratories. And you have before you the records from Akasha of all the 20 billion souls who are in embodiment or coming into embodiment. And you know their karma, you know all their cosmic clock cycles, you know all their astrology, you know everything that they need to know. And you have the ability to create seeds of light now to be offered to the students, to absorb into their consciousness, to produce the fruit of ascended master perfection in their lives. You also have the full knowledge and understanding of the perversion of the Fohatic keys and the perversion of the Fohatic science by the fallen ones, and all that they have done throughout this universe to affect the spiritual evolution of the light bearers, to interfere with it. So being an ascended master and having access to the mind of God and infinite intelligence, and you're preparing a dictation now that you're going to present to the students. And we are told by Saint Germain that some of the dictations that only last 30 minutes in duration require up to 2 years of earth time to prepare. So the master speaking the dictation, the luminous intelligent substance flowing through the master, flowing through the messenger, the living word coming through, is loaded with Fohatic keys. And we're told that the masters can layer as many as 45 tracks of information into that message so that they already know who's going to hear these dictations 100 years before the person is born. And there's messages embedded in there for every student that's different for every student. And I've been saying for the last 20 years that you can read Studies of the Aura and come back a year later and read it again, and it's a different book, and you can't believe how different it is because your consciousness is in a different place. And now the keys are unlocking on a different track. And that's why I've read the book 20 times, because I went from the level of human consciousness to finally reading it at the level of the I Am Presence and understanding the luminous self-intelligent substance at that level. So there was nothing further to unlock. It took 20 readings through it. It took 30 readings through alchemy to get it that way. And so everybody is going to have a different experience, but I guarantee that the second, third, fourth time you read this material, it's going to unlock different things in your consciousness because of the Fohatic keys that are embedded in the dictation. So now you have come to understand the masters have put in there more than just words, so much more than just words. And when they say you must read the 4 pillars first, imagine You're an engineer building a skyscraper. Would you use concrete that has no rebar? You want reinforced concrete in your foundation. What do you think the masters put in the Fohatic Keys, knowing that that would be the foundation to make your foundation strong? If you don't read those 4 books and study those 4 books and wander down the path, you might fall off the path 5 years from now because you didn't have a foundation. And we've often seen students leave the teaching and fall off the path, and they wonder why. Why did some distraction take them away? Why did suddenly the teaching not resonate? Why did their karma overwhelm them? And I suggest often it was because they were lacking the 4 pillars. So they had not taken the opportunity to embed firmly the Fohatic Keys that were there waiting for them. And then back to the 1958 dictation from El Morya, where he talked about the pearls, and the pearls are the published dictations. And El Morya said, at the end of a dictation, whether you're listening to it or reading it, there's the opportunity for the exchange of light between yourself and the master. And you have to give the pearl call to call forth what is still unlocked in the dictation that you did not have access to listening or reading. 90% of it remained unlocked unless it was called forth. This is something we use at Shambhala Temple of Light every time we listen to a dictation, and I recommend it to the students every time you read a single chapter of one of the books of the Masters, because you're reading the dictations. In the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, El Morya, and Guru Ma, I ask and commend my I am presence and beloved, and then you insert the name of the Master whose pearl you just heard or read. So we'll say Saint Germain for this one. I ask and command my I am presence and beloved Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation that I have just heard, in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar, consume and transmute it, and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. Only takes a minute. It's such a simple call. But by giving the pearl call, every time you listen to a dictation or every time you read the words of the Masters, you unlock 90% of the potential that was waiting there for you that is not accessible without giving this call. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And so, in order to make that teaching well understood and well grounded, I want to write a book in which I provide all the references directly from the dictations of the Masters that make this absolutely firm, that you can't argue it, say Michael just made this up or just thinks it's true. I know this is the truth. I just happen to be the only guy that I know that's ever figured this out. All the people I've talked to, it was brand new to them. I've taken concepts from a lot of different sources to assemble this understanding, and I just believe it's so powerful it has to get out there.